Welcome everyone to Sister Wives with Mary Jane Kay. If you could please remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube audience, I would really appreciate that. The first thing that I want to discuss today are the taglines, because as I was watching the intro, I noted that what each wife said is actually essentially the opposite of what is now. And I wanted to just take a moment and delve into that and give some commentary. Mary's tagline is, I believed in living this lifestyle. It just makes each of us better. Did the lifestyle make Mary better? Mary ended up having an affair and falling victim to a catfish because being sheltered by the lifestyle kind of hindered her developing a sense of street smarts. And we learned last tell-all that Cody had abandoned Mary intimately way before the catfish, over 10 years ago. Mary lived in a sexless marriage for over a decade. Is Mary happier now as she lives alone in her mansion, much too large for one, in the trees or out of the trees? We know she is very successful business-wise, but Cody made it clear they will never again live as husband and wife. They will never be even good friends. Mary is barely an acquaintance Cody will tolerate. After Mary sacrificed her legal marriage to allow Robin and Cody to marry under the guise of Robin needing the legal wife status in order to allow Cody to adopt her kids and get all the rights that go along with it. Cody's health insurance benefits, Cody on her children's birth certificates, inheritance rights, and all the rights Robin gets as a legal wife in the event of Cody's passing, God forbid, in the event of if she wanted to divorce him. Robin has an actual leg to stand on as a legal wife. The lifestyle is supposed to make the women better. People in the lifestyle who are doing it for faith reasons are supposed to overcome base human emotions like jealousy, insecurity, competition, envy, ego, and selfishness. It's supposed to make you your best self. But it's made Mary into a person who stepped outside of her marriage and her family. And that isn't something inherent at all in Mary's character. But she was abandoned by her husband and the lifestyle and the inherent iniquity and unfairness and the expectation to overcome intuitive, natural, normal human emotions, and the inability to do so portrayed as weakness when it isn't natural to necessarily overcome those emotions when sharing a husband, to the mind, to the body, to the conscience of a soul. That led Mary to become a person who deeply desired and deserves love and recognition so desperately that she did have an emotional affair. And had the catfish been real, she would have left and broken her spiritual vows. So did it make her better, the lifestyle, or did it drive her to act in a way she would never act without the turbulence of the lifestyle? Did it make Mary better or drive her to her worst? One has to wonder. Janelle's tagline is, I expected there would be other wives. I think there's room for everybody. Janelle didn't marry Cody for love. We learned from the Browns' memoir, Becoming Sister Wives, in my last episode of Book Club number 3, covering chapter 2 on Janelle and Cody, that there was nothing romantic about her marriage to Cody. Janelle wanted a good father for her kids, so she saw how Cody was with kids and decided he would be a good, invested father. And she was disillusioned by her first marriage not working as far as romantic love. She knew she wanted to work but also have kids, so she took on the faith and she took on Cody. They shared an intellectual connection and a friendship, and for Cody, it was convenient because Janelle could be a breadwinner. For Janelle, she could have her cake and eat it too. She wanted to work, but also have a home life and a big family to go home to. But she wasn't into playing Susie Homemaker or all the daily mundane practicalities of childcare and home life. So polygamy worked best for her. Someone else got to do the lion's share of the cooking and cleaning and laundry and chores and housework and childcare. That stuff she despised, Christine did. And she went to work as she loved and preferred, and her paycheck went to the family. So Janelle knew wives would come. She expected it. And I'm sure it hurt each time a new wife came in, but it didn't sting as much for her because I don't believe she was ever madly in love with Cody. Her world did not ever truly revolve around him. Janelle is practical, and this lifestyle setup was practical for her. And Sister Wives meant she could have kids without the fuss and still go to work, having her cake and eating it too. Christine's tagline is, I like Sister Wives. I wanted the family. I didn't just want the man. Christine undoubtedly was the heart of the family. She truly wanted the family, not just the man. Christine was considered polygamy royalty. Her family are very prominent in leadership positions in their faith, in their church, and she grew up in the faith and the lifestyle, and Christine was so immersed in it, she knew what number wife she wanted to be, third. She didn't want to be the only wife alone with her husband or the second wife who was seen as the wedge to the happy couple creating an uproar. She wanted to be third, the youngest wife, the newest wife. I imagine Christine felt she would be the last wife coming into the already established order. I don't think Christine ever imagined Cody taking on a wife after her. And when he did, it was devastating to Christine. She later acknowledged she was the basement wife, or the lowest in the pecking order, who sacrificed herself and her identity for the family, for the raising of the kids, for the caregiving, the cooking, the cleaning, and the running of the home. And she got no appreciation for her role, especially from Cody. Christine had the most important role in the family, and she was the family's true heart, and she also had the hardest role in the family. In fact, when Christine went to Cody needing help and she told him she was overwhelmed with her workload, with caring for the home and cooking and providing almost full-time caregiving to not only her kids, but also to Janelle's kids, as Janelle went to work and contributed financially, Cody told Christine, who voiced that she needed help, she was overwhelmed. He told her she signed up for this and she needed to hold up her end of the agreement. She was shit out of luck. He couldn't help her. It was on her. As we know, Christine really did want the family, not just the man. And in the end, last season, she divorced Cody and left him after he tried to use withholding sex as a manipulative tactic to change her behavior towards her sister wife, Robin. Now, Robin wasn't mentioned explicitly or called out by name, but we can easily deduce it was Robin Cody was referring to when he said Christine needed to improve her behavior with her sister wives and she was being a bad sister wife when he wanted to negotiate intimacy in their marriage, or Christine rather wanted to negotiate it and Cody was saying it's off the table and throwing her crumbs of, we'll see how your relationship goes with your sister wives. When Cody knew he had two other wives he could get sex from, Janelle and Robin, and I'm excluding Mary because he has made it clear he will not even touch her with a 10-foot pole over and over and over again. So polygamy has led Christine to leave the faith, to leave the lifestyle, and to leave Cody altogether. So it's very interesting that she was really the heart of the family and really the team player that made everything go. And now she has left the man and the faith and the lifestyle all together. Robin's tagline is, the wives work together. I want to be a part of that team. This is a common theme of Robin's. Last episode, she was going on and on about how she wants to be an indispensable part of the group, a person who would be noticed and missed if absent from the team. She mentioned how if either Mary, Christine, Janelle, or Cody were gone from the group, they would be noticed and deeply missed from the group, and she wants to get to that place. She mentioned that the lifestyle makes you sacrifice for the team, and you become increasingly selfless as a result. And the team's needs override your individual wants and needs. But does Robin put herself in a position to be a valued group member and to be indispensable to that group? How can she, when she stopped working and took from the whole team's finances, leaving all of Cody's wives and kids with less each month to fund her existence, her food, her bills, her utilities, her roof, her clothes and car, everything for her kids, and to pay for a whole second family and residence? The wives and kids Cody already had all got much less on already thin resources, and Robin didn't lift a finger to work. She did a few times of after-school care for an hour here or there, praying the wives would see her value as a non-working drain on the group finances. When you take from the team pot without adding to it, expecting to live off the team and expecting them as a result to have a lot less to work with to fund your existence, you then become a liability. And there is no way you will ever be seen as an indispensable team member unless you can at least cover yourself and not only take from the team, but add to it and give back. Then you will be a true indispensable team member. Is giving each wife and child less to pay for your existence and your livelihood as you don't work and provide for yourself as a grown adult, draining the team's finances and expecting them to gladly make do with less and see your value as a person who puts the team's interests ahead of their own? What's fair and best for the team? You have to play well with others and sacrifice for others. And manipulating the group intentionally to win favor isn't serving the team either, like the fake wedding dress shopping experience, for example. Making allowances and excuses for getting different standards than the team, or bending the rules everyone else lives by and creating reasons that make it acceptable when everyone else followed the same playbook isn't shrugging self-interest for the team or working together. Robin was willing to live monogamy with Cody and use the pandemic as an excuse. It was in her best interest and in her kids' best interests to have a full-time husband and father around. But was that in the best interest of the team? Does that scream wanting to work together and be an indispensable part of the group? Even last tell-all, Robin tried to throw some of Janelle and Christine's kids under the bus, saying she was being blamed for Cody's behaviors and complaining that she was tired of not being accepted, no matter how much she sacrifices or what she does to try and bridge the gap. So still, Robin is on the periphery, and it's because the other wives and kids see her personality type and manipulative proclivities, particularly the emotional manipulation, and they aren't interested in crocodile tears or manipulations or insincerities. They know Robin can't work together, and so has polygamy made Robin the selfless asset to the group she claims to be? Is every choice she makes for the welfare of the whole family or her and her kids? Next up is Cody's tagline: love should be multiplied, not divided. Well, we know last season he has been living monogamy with Robin and loving it. He has said her home is the only home that feels like his home, and it's the only place he feels obeyed and respected and true loyalty. He calls Janelle's kids or Christine's kids by their mother's name alone, not taking ownership and distancing himself from them. He never refers to Janelle's or Christine's kids as his kids or our kids, but always Janelle's kids or Christine's kids, openly disconnecting himself from them, as he refers to Robin's kids openly as his kids, eagerly owning them as his own. He longs to live monogamy with Robin, and he was eager to jump at the chance to create very orthodox and rigid COVID rules that he created that are more stringent than the CDC guidelines, intentionally knowing they would be impossible for all of the wives and kids to follow, and that he could use that and his fear of the pandemic as an excuse to live as he wanted in monogamy with Robin for at least 9 to 10 months. So he now prefers dividing love. He even stopped calling his kids from other wives regularly as he used to during the pandemic, and many of the older kids don't even speak to him. He no longer prefers to live polygamy or multiply his love. He doesn't even play act at being fair or even go through the motions with his wives and kids, even just for the cameras. He even said, "My wives are obstacles to my goals in life. My wives are obstacles to my goals in life." How does that jive with love should be multiplied, not divided? He loved living monogamy. He wanted to. And he definitely used the pandemic as an excuse to live as he preferred to his heart's content in monogamy with favorite wife Robin. And if his wives are obstacles to his goals, would his goal not be a divided love as he lived during the pandemic in something closer to monogamy with Robin? Those taglines spoke to me today, and I just had to digress a bit and address it. Okay, so let's get into the episode. Sister Wives Season 2, Episode 4, Carving into Polygamy. It's the day before Halloween weekend, and there's a lot going on at the Brown house. The kids are hyper, they're all riled up, and I used to love Halloween as a kid. Love, love, love. the treats, the costumes. And I remember things like the Halloween parade in elementary school, and they would bring in this huge pumpkin and have everyone guess the weight for a prize. It was a good time. And the neighbors were this elderly couple with a cute Bichon, and they would go all out and dress up, and they would have eyeballs and heads on platters and brains and out and guts. And the whole thing was a very realistic horror show, and it was kid-friendly-ish. And it still sticks out in my mind as a 39-year-old as like my favorite Halloween thing was going to the Longo's house, and they had this whole setup with this very realistic, like honestly, it could have been a Hollywood done thing. It was so professional, so realistic horror show, and everybody in the neighborhood loved it, myself included. It was awesome and delightful to my 5-year-old mind, and these people went all out. Even the other neighborhood adults were impressed. So when I think of Halloween, that's automatically like where my mind goes. So my point is, for the kids, Halloween is a day almost as looked forward to as your birthday or Christmas morning. You know, you get to dress up, you know, you get to have a long day, a sugar rush all day long, and usually class that day is just fun stuff like watching Elvira or Hocus Pocus or whatever late 80s, early 90s Halloween movies were out. I remember one particular Halloween movie on the Disney Channel with Tim Curry at a school for witches. It was a very creepy movie, but it was cute. I remember watching that. So there were a lot of cute Halloween movies, Hocus Pocus. The teacher would read scary stories to tell in the dark. I particularly remember there was one about a little girl who had her head chopped off with a green scarf. I don't know why that one sticks in my head. Anyways, it was very ghoulish stuff, but I loved it, and it felt exciting. As a kid, everything feels exciting. You live in the moment, and it was fun and a time for excitement. But here in the opening scene is Goblin telling the kids on the day before Halloween, let's see how quiet we can get in here. Cody's nerves are frayed already. He has his shades resting on his forehead, not on his head like most people. And Mariah goes to get something as Cody is about to address all of his kids. And he tells her not to leave, and she does anyways. And Cody isn't happy with that. He complains, my goodness, everybody has got to grab something, very irritatedly, as Mary stares at him, knowing he's in a mood. Cody tells viewers he is taking the family to the park for a picnic to have pizza and play. And then they're going to Evan's family farm to pick out pumpkins at the pumpkin patch. That's fun. I've done that before, like most kids, and I remember enjoying that a lot. To get his kids motivated to load up quickly, Cody warns them, if you're not in a car that's leaving, you're not getting there, okay? In an irritated tone. Why not say, kids, we're going to have a fun day. We'll play at the park. We're going to get pizza. We're going to go pick pumpkins to carve at a pumpkin patch. And tomorrow's Halloween, so this will be amazing. But if you guys can get in the car as quickly as possible so we can get there and have fun, all the fun can start, that would be great. Barking at them, if you don't get in a car, you aren't getting there, which is already obvious, and not delivering his message that he wants the process of piling into cars to go quickly was just totally pointless, in my opinion. It did nothing. Anyways, Cody allows Mariah the privilege to drive his car to the park, and she is so happy her father has not only favored her, but allowed her to drive the sports car midlife crisis vehicle that he prizes so much. We know last episode, Cody said that Mariah was the kid who never badgered him for shoes or braces or anything extra. Or at least the kid who badgered him the least. And now he is favoring her by letting her drive his status symbol to the pumpkin patch. And I wonder if that brews further resentment, or if just as Cody favors his favorite wife, he shows favoritism openly to the kids as well. Mary reminds Cody he has to remind Mariah to look both ways. Mary can't believe they have kids old enough to get licenses, and we learn also Logan is driving as well. Janelle keeps thinking the same thing as Mary. Mary says she's not that old yet. As Mariah is about to back out of her driveway, Cody states the obvious, and he tells her she has to look out the back and turn her head as she's backing out the convertible. Janelle is frustrated watching the whole process of everyone piling into cars because everybody wants to take their car and then they have too many spaces. Janelle is always amazed at how long it takes the family to get from the house to the car. She wants to make a seating assignment. And the camera pauses at Robin focusing on thinking she is directing the car operation, and she's focusing so much that she has her tongue hanging out of her mouth, and it looked very unfortunate. Janelle says they're always trying to decide how many seats they need and who can go in what car. Robin has 3 seats in her car no one seems too eager to fill. Mary explains to Janelle that the seating arrangement depends on who is getting along with whom or what kids like what mom on that certain day, who's fighting, who's getting along. So a seating chart really wouldn't work. Mariah turns in the wrong direction and Cody lets her know, "We're going over there," and he orders her to pull up quickly, very impatiently. Mariah tells Cody she doesn't know where they're going. They get to the park and there are a zillion pizzas, and Christine explains that they rarely do pizza because it's very expensive, but it's a very fast meal. It's easy and convenient for the park. She says sometimes it's fun to splurge and do things like that. Pizza in a family can usually be a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly thing. I remember in my family, I believe it was like every Friday we would have pizza, and we were a family of 5. It's not typically considered a huge luxury or a splurge, but for a family of 20 plus at 2 or 3 slices each and 8 slices per pie, that's around 8 pizzas at the minimum. And I would go for 9 or 10 to be on the safe side and have leftovers, of course. But something as simple as pizza becomes a luxury or a fun splurge in a family of 20 plus people when you have to buy pizza for all of them all together every time. It's like feeding an army. So it's not something that most families can do once a week. It's a huge expense for them. So that would be something that's not a benefit to polygamy. In a monogamous family of 5, it's not too crazy to have pizza once a week, on Fridays, twice a month. But in a polygamous family, getting 9 or 10 pizzas every night is a huge expense, undoubtedly. Cody explains that it's been 5 months since the wedding, and Robin's kids have integrated very well into the family, and they always look forward to coming to the big house. And Robin tells Cody and the wives they have integrated very well into her family too. Of course, they're the one footing the bill for her existence. They fit in very well. At the tell-all this season, Robin complained that she was exhausted with not being accepted by the whole family and her kids not being fully accepted by the whole larger family. And she was sick and tired of it. She was putting her foot down. We also know she inferred that some of Cody's other wives were kind of poisoning some of the older children's minds in regards to their perceptions of her. And maybe that's why they were calling and blaming her for how the pandemic was handled by Cody. And Robin felt it's unfair to do for the wives to kind of voice their perceptions and their opinions and for the kids to hear it. It wasn't put in so much detail, but more or less it was inferred, and she complained of it not being fair, as if adult and near-adult kids can't see what's happening and figure things out with their own intellect and experiences. We also know there was one episode where some of the kids weren't so nice to Robin's kids, and Mary tried to put a stop to it, and she was criticized for how she handled the situation. And there was another episode where Robin complained that if her kids weren't accepted in Cody's family at a certain age, they could decide to live with their father. Also, Cody accused Janelle and Christine of being an exclusionary Mean Girls high school type of clique, excluding and bullying poor victim Robin. Last tell-all. So this episode, Robin tells Cody and the wives they integrated well into her family, and Cody says Robin's kids have integrated well into his family. But of course, there are huge contradictions from one season to the next, one storyline to the next, and between their book and the way they recount history on the show as well. So the contradiction here isn't too surprising. Logan says since the wedding, the transition has been very smooth and very successful. He says they're all very well off right now. He is sitting on a confessional couch with his older siblings, Maddie, Hunter, Aspen, and Mariah, and they all look down and very serious and maudlin and morose. Logan is saying this, that things are going well, everything's going smoothly, and everybody is sitting on this confessional couch. All his other siblings are completely shifting their gaze away from cameras, and they're looking down and they're looking very serious and very sad. It has like a negative vibe. And it seems to me from their expressions and body language on that confessional couch that some of those other siblings may not agree that the transition has been as successful as Logan is telling viewers it is. And maybe the Browns aren't so well off as Logan is saying. No one is smiling or looking happy or authentic with the statements. They all make a point to look down or away, and they look very tense and they look unhappy with it. Next on the confessional couch are Gwen, Savannah, Brianna, and Aurora. And Aurora says, when her mom married Cody, they came into the family. And ever since then, it's been really fun being a part of their family. And she likes being a part of their family. Aurora explains they're like a family tree, and there are 4 branches. And her mom's family is on one branch, Janelle is another, and Christine and Mary's. And her dad, keep in mind, Robin has only been married to Cody 5 months at this point, and courting for maybe 9 months to a year, if that. But Aurora says, my dad, referring to Cody, she says, but her dad, Cody, visits all the branches of the tree. Cody is already her dad after knowing Aurora less than a year, maybe a year and a half, and she has a biological dad. Yet she's already referring to Cody as dad, and as we have seen before on the show, Robin really pushes the narrative. There was one episode, I believe, where Robin is showing her kids pictures, and Robin is pointing right before she married Cody, she's pointing to a picture, and she says, who's this? And the child, I believe, can't remember if it was Brianna or Aurora. I believe it was Brianna, but it might have been Aurora. The child says back, Cody. And she says, who? And then the child re-answers, knowing that answer was wrong from her mom's tone, and says, Dad. So we know that Robin has pushed the narrative of really wanting them to call Cody dad. So Cody is already her dad after knowing Aurora maybe less than a year and a half, and she has a biological dad. And I find that to be very interesting. Brianna starts crying and hysterics because supposedly, during this confessional scene, because supposedly Gwen pulled her hair. Aurora comforts her, and Gwen straight up apologizes to her. She says, I'm sorry for pulling your hair. I thought that was very mature of her. To break down and cry because your hair got pulled lightly is a bit much. No wonder the other brown kids are able to go out and live independently and function responsibly with autonomy as adults and live very successful lives independently way outside of their homes long ago, while Robin's adult kids still live at home. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, this is the problem with too much coddling and being too overbearing as a parent. Then the slightest scrapes and minor hurts become a big, huge trauma, and that doesn't prepare kids for the real world if they're overly cushioned and coddled. They have to fall down and learn to get back up, and that they have to learn they will get hurt. They are going to get scraped and bumped along the way, especially in real life. So they have to learn to deal with it without it feeling like the end of the world type of a feeling and type of a response from them. And if you over coddle and you take away your child's ability to cope and navigate, it's not just crying over a hair pull at age 5 or 6 or 7. It becomes an issue well into adulthood, and it becomes how you cope with life and how you function as an adult. And that's just my opinion. Gwen apologized immediately, and I have a feeling the brown kids, being used to some degree of responsibility and some degree of roughhousing, allowed them more skills to cope and adapt without minor things feeling like the end of the world. Robin explains that Brianna is very thin-skinned. She gets hurt very easily, and she is just tender in feeling and physically. She says the boys get frustrated by Brianna, especially Garrison and Dayton. Dayton will complain, Mom, she's crying again. Dayton and Peyton and Gabe and Garrison are all in confessional together, and Peyton lets viewers know they are a little too whiny sometimes. Gabriel likes them because they have a good personality and stuff, but he admits Brianna will cry for no reason sometimes. Aspen says it's because Robin raised them differently than they were raised. Mariah says they were raised to toughen up. Maddie says when they come in crying and they cry over stupid things when they would have been told to knock it off and go play, they think, are you seriously crying over that? Logan, ever the wise, diplomatic one, says he thinks it's all teaching them a little bit more patience, and that's good for them. Logan is very diplomatic about things, and he always tries to see the good of things. But Cody's older daughters already understand where the problem lies, in the differences in parenting style. And we can see what difference the parenting styles have made in the adult brown kids versus some of the other adult kids in the family. All of Mary, Janelle, and Robin's adult kids are in successful relationships. They have good, independent, functional home lives. All are happy and mature and fully independent and responsible. Some work, some are going to school, some finish school and are career focused. Some are amazing moms who also work. But all of the kids are happy and thriving and successful and fully independent in their adult lives, functioning as thriving independent adults. Whereas all of Robin's adult kids still live at home. I believe they do school. I don't know if they work or not, but they all still live at home. I do know Dayton has a disability, but I don't really believe that that would prevent him from being able to live an independent adult life at all. He is very intelligent and he is definitely capable. I think Robin prefers to keep her adult kids at home forever if it's possible, at least until they marry. I don't think she raised them to be independent and responsible or to believe in their capabilities. And the difference in the adult lives of Cody's other adult kids and Robin's kids is obvious. And I believe, in my opinion, the parenting style differences have a lot to do with it. There seems to be a higher success rate so far with the less coddled kids who had more responsibility as adults than with Robin's kids so far. And that may change. Who knows what Robin's kids will accomplish after college. I just feel parenting style has a lot to do with the marked differences of the adult brown kids' lives. Everybody heads to the pumpkin patch next. Mariah decides she would rather drive her mom's car after Cody micromanaged Mariah's every move driving his precious baby. They get to the Evans family farm pumpkin patch to pick pumpkins as a family, and Mary says it's a fun place because they have so much stuff for the kids to do. There's a fun hay bale maze that kind of reminds me of Dwight's hay bale maze on The Office. Cody sometimes reminds me of Michael Scott, to the point where sometimes I feel like I'm watching a mockumentary of a reality show of a polygamous family. It's not Cody's personality or abusive tactics at all that remind me of Michael Scott. There are many redeeming qualities in Michael Scott. No matter how absurd Michael Scott is, despite his antics, the viewer cringes when they see Michael showboating. But they also feel for Michael. They both share, Cody and Michael Scott, this tremendous lack of self-awareness. Except one Michael Scott is a character, and one is a father of a huge polygamous family with little to no redeeming qualities, in my opinion. And I threw the little in there to be polite. There is a place to jump in hay, like a hay-covered trampoline, and a place to hold cute, cuddly little bunnies. They are so adorable. Oh my God. Mary says all the stuff was exciting for the kids, and Christine scoffs and says, "Not just the kids. Did you see you?" Christine says she's all kids, the kids. This is for the kids. But Mary was very excited too. And Christine says you saw kids jumping, and then you would see a tall adult person, Mary, jumping up and down on the trampoline too. The kids are having a blast, Mary included, and Cody is barking at the kids, "Aspen, Madison, come on, let's go pick out a pumpkin," like he's an energy vampire, super uptight, wanting to get the outing over with. I would be having so much fun even as an adult, jumping around, holding bunnies. Why can't Cody stop and have fun and bask in childlike wonder with his kids for just a minute or two? Cody is no fun, uptight, clenched butthole, wanting to get done. His time limit for when his mask melts away is coming, and he is going to be like Cinderella, carriage turning into a pumpkin, but Cody will grow his devil horns, his smile will turn to a frown, and he will pout and yell and shout and moan like a mean old Grinch, more focused on making good time than making a lasting memory for his family. He yells once more, "Let's go, come on," and he stands, hands on his hips, the only one in a rush, like a griping old grandma who forgot her happy pills this morning. He always stands, hands on hips, like an angry woman every time he gets impatient. He did this during the In the Trees or Out of the Trees. I noticed it. He's done it many times before, and he's doing it now in the pumpkin patch. Notice Cody does this just every time he gets impatient and he's about to get frustrated and the mask is about to fall off, and it always brings a smile to my face. When he gets annoyed, his hands go straight to his hips, and he does it often, and I have rarely seen a man stand that way with both hands on hips, mad at the world. Janelle says the pumpkin field was big. There was plenty of space. Robin even tells everyone to go have fun, the harbinger of doom and gloom, who asks the kids to see who can be most quiet on the day before Halloween, when kids are super excited and happy. Won't be kids for too long. They should enjoy it. And she couldn't just allow them some enjoyment. And she is the harbinger of doom and gloom who shamed Isabel for eating a small bowl of cereal and milk after school, saying it was just supposed to be a snack, not a meal. And even Robin, helicopter mom of the century, is telling everyone, go have fun. The kids were amazed that they get to walk around all over this sprawling pumpkin patch, juxtaposed with some striking mountains in the background. It was probably one of the most picturesque pumpkin patches I have ever seen, with those mountains for a backdrop. All the kids got to pick their own perfect pumpkins in the patch that they were going to carve. I love carving pumpkins, and I want to. I have a yen to carve right now. The last pumpkin I carved, I was maybe in my mid-20s, maybe my late 20s, and I want to. I miss it. Too bad it's May. Robin says it was cool for the little ones because some of them have never carved a pumpkin before. How much do you want to bet her kids were the only little kids there, short of baby Truly, who have never carved a pumpkin for Halloween before? Maybe because it seemed a tad too daring or unsafe for kids. I wonder seriously if the little kids Robin is referring to that have never carved pumpkins are just hers. Even in kindergarten, we would help where we could, and my parents would be there supervising, doing the dangerous parts, as we eagerly looked on till we got to the right ages to do it fully alone. Christine explains all the kids had specific things they wanted. Some wanted really cute and round pumpkins, and some wanted the biggest pumpkin they could find, and all the kids were so specific on exactly what they wanted. I remember I was definitely particular about how round the pumpkin was, how tall. I can specifically remember it, picking pumpkins I could never carry, wanting the perfect one to my liking, and I seriously want to carve a pumpkin right now. I feel so inspired. Aiden explains in confessional that he wanted a big, plump pumpkin that was very orange, and Garrison is smiling, shaking his head. He tells Dayton, "What's up? Let's remember how practical Janelle is, and that Garrison is Janelle's son." Garrison tells Dayton, "That's only in commercials. That's not really how it is." He tells Dayton the pumpkins are usually green or they have bruises on them. Mary picks a dark green pumpkin she likes because it's small and cute and different. Dayton picks a huge pumpkin he can't carry, and he asks Mary to lift it and hand it to him so he doesn't have to bend and lift it. So Mary helps him and hands him the pumpkin, but it's too heavy, and he begs Mary to take it, and Mary tells Dayton he can do it, and Garrison is behind Mary watching and smiling at that. They needed 24 pumpkins total for the family, and they ended up getting 27 pumpkins. Mary is pushing one of the 3 or so wheelbarrows filled with pumpkins to the brim, and Cody says, "Come on, show us your strong womanhood." During the whole pumpkin picking and carrying, Cody seemed to just stand and supervise, hand on hips, not helping or participating too much, just overlooking the pumpkin picking operation as his wives and older kids lifted and carried and gathered. And now Cody is doing absolutely none of the labor so far, and he is taunting and challenging Mary to show us her strong womanhood. He loves putting women down, especially Mary. Remember during the moving episode when Mary took charge and everyone joked that she was the packing Nazi or the moving Nazi, and that she gets in and she gets it done and she's very effective. And Cody had not even a box in his hand. He was just standing there doing nothing as usual, as Mary was helping Robin move. And everyone was praising Mary, and Cody criticized her, who basically organized and worked the whole move, moving his new wife, by saying that Mary's the packing Nazi, but she takes too long. She overthinks things. He couldn't just praise and appreciate Mary and her moving skills and organizational skills and the skills that she has of delegating the family and packing the vans well and the boxes. He had to throw in criticism as he stood there doing absolutely nothing at that time labor-wise. And here he is doing absolutely nothing, criticizing Mary, taunting her, meaning her womanhood, saying, "Show us your strong womanhood." A real man wouldn't stand around as his wives lift 27 pumpkins. If each pumpkin is 20 pounds each, most are more than that for the large ones especially. That's 540 pounds of pumpkin they primarily lifted and gathered and transported as Cody stood there. Why throw out that comment? A real man would take his oldest boys and do all the hard labor after his wives help the kids pick the pumpkin they want, and they would go with the boys and gather and lift the pumpkins. Not that a woman can't do it. A woman is just as capable, but a gentleman wouldn't stand there and oversee everything and criticize as his wives do all the supervision of the kids and the heavy lifting and gathering. He's standing by idly like a king. Mary says back to Cody, like he thinks I can't do a wheelbarrow, and her wheelbarrow is in a ditch, so Mary needs help. But Cody is already gone with his wheelbarrow of pumpkins, and Robin comes to her aid, and Robin and the wives cheer Mary on as she pushes this wheelbarrow full of pumpkins down a path. Keep in mind, Mary was lifting pumpkins all day for the kids into the wheelbarrows from the patch. Mary says Cody was thinking she couldn't carry the wheelbarrow for some reason, but she does just fine, and she acknowledges she handled it perfectly fine. Go, Mary. I loved seeing Mary happy this episode, playing with the kids, jumping in the hay, picking pumpkins, being playful, being happy. Really nice seeing Mary happy, and we haven't seen that much in the later seasons. Cody tells Mary, good job, you rock, as she is unloading wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow of pumpkins, and Logan says Mary does not dilly-dally. She likes to take the initiative. Maddie explains Mary is not the leader because she is the first wife. It's just in her personality. Mariah agrees regarding her mom. Mariah says her mom is just the one who says, let's just do it. And Maddie says she's just dominant. The pumpkins are weighed, and it is between 500 and 600 pounds. And she lifted it all in and out of the wheelbarrows. Dayton is pulling a small radio flyer cart of pumpkins, griping, oh my God. The men in the family, other than Logan and Gabe and Garrison and Hunter, complained more than Mary, who did the lion's share of the heavy lifting. And by the men, I basically mean Cody. As we see the plethora of pumpkins loaded into the cars, Mary explains there's a lot of pumpkins because with the Browns, you gotta go big or go home, you know? Logan says yeah, enthusiastically, but I detect a hint or two of sarcasm since he did a lot of the work too. Robin is in her classic white headband and pumpkin color top, and she explains it's Halloween today, and they're going to carve pumpkins and they're going to dress up and take the kids trick-or-treating. One of the other little kids says it's a happy day. Everyone is abuzz with excitement. We learn Halloween is Christine's favorite holiday. Robin asks, really? In disbelief? Christine asserts, yes, I love Halloween. As we know, Robin loves Christmas, and she has all kinds of creepy angels and figurines for Christmas, I believe. We see it in her scenes of her house around the holidays, and it's always creepy and over the top. She probably wonders how Christine prefers dress up and the whimsy of Halloween and make-believe to Heavenly Father's son, Jesus' birthday, the most sacred and wholesome holiday to her. The kids are all outside frolicking in the fallen leaves. Ian comes in and alerts everyone he needs help getting pumpkins. Robin is going to grab pumpkin carving kits, and Madison needs egg drop soup, so Robin to the rescue. Cody thinks he is going to go as Sammy Hagar for Halloween, so he wants red stuff for his hair, and for Robin to get said red stuff, as he puts it, the red stuff for hair. Mariah asks, who's Sammy Hagar? And Cody is baffled. She doesn't know of him. He gets out, you, Sammy, in disbelief. Robin clarifies, you want red hairspray? Cody says, just real light. Mariah asks, so you want pink? And he says, no, not pink. Mary explains on Halloween, they needed to get all of the stuff for the costumes for the kids ready and to get all of the pumpkins carved before all the trick-or-treaters started to show up. A month before, I'd have everything I needed prepared and ready for Halloween. Can you imagine the day of making sure all those people had costumes, wigs, accessories, and cosmetics all ready day of, and going to the store the day of Halloween to get everything for 20 plus people? I'd want to poke my eyes out at the stress. Robin is explaining to Cody, for the 4 women for Halloween, they will be the 4 elements: earth, wind, water, and fire. Janelle says they think Cody should be the avatar, but he is saying no. Robin says the avatar controls the elements, but Cody doesn't control them. Mary tells Robin he might like to think he does. Garrison overhears and says, "This is just Sister Wives nerd talk." And Robin feigns outrage and she ruffles his hair and says, "I'm not a nerd." And then she lightly slaps his ass. I know she was just joking, but I was like, There's a big white tarp on the grass in the backyard, and the kids are seated with their pumpkins on the tarp, and Logan instructs, "Hey, put all the gunk, all the brain stuff out of these pumpkins into these buckets." I love how Logan is still a kid and he's like 18, he doesn't get to carve a pumpkin himself. He gets to run the show and be like in a parentified role. Gwen is in the Halloween spirit. She yells, "Brains! Ah!" in a ghoulish voice. Logan is almost like in a father role, supervising and cutting off the pumpkin tops so the kids can start scooping the gunk out. I love that gunk because you can make amazing, fresh, seasoned pumpkin seeds, which I love. I don't love the gunky, slimy part, but I love the pumpkin seeds. And those pumpkin seeds that come from the inside of the pumpkin are amazing. You can season them and do amazing stuff with those seeds. To be fair, Robin is supervising as well, and she really does seem to be very engaged and doing a good job. I do want to point out that there is a backyard shed with a huge Fajita Cantina sign, and that automatically makes me think of happy hour and drinking, like tequila shots. But I know the Browns, back then at least, didn't imbibe, so I don't know why they have that sign or what it means having it posted on that shed. I know Cody was in advertising, so maybe it's just a remnant of an old business sign no longer in use that the Browns took. Maybe a viewer will know and fill me in. I just associate something like a fajita cantina with tequila, maybe some margaritas in my mind, so I find it interesting that the Browns have a fajita cantina shed. Are they drinking mini margaritas in there, I wonder? Logan explains that pumpkin carving was really messy fun. It was fun, but really, really messy. Peyton suggests doing a pumpkin seed fight, and Christine nopes it immediately. Gwen is hardcore into it. She yells, "Pumpkin fight!" and grabs a big wad of pumpkin slime, throwing it down. Robin says there's a lot of kids, but she doesn't really look at it as some sort of overwhelming responsibility. They're her kids, and she is going to love them. And she is surprised at their capacity having another mom who can come in and boss them around and stuff. Robin says it's a lot of fun and it's really rewarding. Logan says it was 30-something odd pumpkins with goop all over there. One of Cody's younger sons tells the group, "Guys, a police guy just came by," and Mary explains it was an accidental call. Cody jokes he's afraid he might have butt dialed 911. I'm pretty sure that was just stage drama to drum up fear, just like the formality of the investigation, which law enforcement had to do, even though the Browns didn't seem to be under a serious threat that was spun and milked to the max to try and dramatize the move to Vegas and stir up emotions of how can a family not live as they want to in America. They had been living as they want, and they wanted to publicize it and advocate for polygamy. So if it's so forward and in the public eye and it isn't technically legal, then law enforcement is forced to do a formality of an investigation. But I don't believe they would have ever separated the family or jailed Cody or the wives or put all of his 20 plus kids in foster care. No way. Cody knew he was fine, but they wanted drama and ratings and to create an emotional outrage. So Americans will wonder why this religion and lifestyle doesn't have the same freedom and rights as everyone else's. I always have said my piece on this, that I believe polygamy should be legalized, not because I believe in it or I advocate for it, and not because I believe it's a healthy, viable lifestyle option for me or anyone else really, but because people deserve the right to live in any family structure they wish, and they deserve the religious freedom to follow any faith they wish, and the freedom to pursue any lifestyle they wish to. And I also believe if polygamous families don't have to live in the shadows, the women will have more rights and more access to help and resources, and they may be more willing to report abuse or seek medical attention or the help of law enforcement if they aren't living in fear of legal repercussions or their kids being removed or being jailed. And I think women and children will have more rights and more legal resources and more resources in general to get out. And for DV situations, there will be much more willingness to get help or counseling or aid, or to seek medical attention, or to go to law enforcement, when some women and children might not do so because they might fear getting the help they need because they're living something that is not technically legal under the law. but I will never believe the lifestyle is conducive to a healthy, thriving environment. I believe it's toxic and complicated and could never be the healthiest choice or most ideal option to live in. I don't believe in living it myself. I don't advocate for it, but legalizing will open up a world of resources and lower fear that would have caused reluctance in victims who might seek help without the fear of the lifestyle in place as a barrier to legal, medical, or mental help. Janelle says because of the investigation and the announcement of the investigation, it's changed her perception of the police. I understand Janelle having some anxiety towards police because of the investigation, but to say that changes her perception of police only when it affects her or her family, it felt very insensitive, especially to the current climate, because Janelle wouldn't be treated differently by cops or anyone in society based on her outward appearance or ethnicity, while others have to grow up in real fear with the possibility that a fearful, untrained, overzealous cop might shoot them or hurt them or misinterpret every move they make and react in a way erroneously that might cost them their life just based on how they look. So to me, it just felt a little bit tone deaf and inappropriate and insensitive to the current times for Janelle to say that has changed her perception of the police only when it affects her. Now, Janelle has a privilege. She doesn't have to worry when she goes out and operates in the world if she gets pulled over by a cop of what's going to happen. She doesn't have to fear that for her life or that she might be treated unjustly. So, and I know Janelle was mentioning this particularly, and it was done intentionally, in my opinion, to stir up drama for a storyline, to justify the move, and to stir viewers' emotions, to be concerned and to act, to make a legislative change. And it was manipulative and inconsiderate to considering what many minorities and people of different socioeconomic statuses in America face when dealing with cops. They are talked to by their parents. They're instructed on what to say and do and how to behave in the interaction with police, just to be sure a poorly trained, fearful cop doesn't misinterpret their moves or overreact, causing real harm or worse, death, just based on how a person looks. So Janelle lives in a much different world, and she can operate in a much different way. She has a different level of privilege. So for Janelle to say when it affects her based on her lifestyle, that it changes how she perceives cops, and now cops, feel threatening to her, she isn't dealing with the possibility of being shot or mistreated because of her appearance or the area she's in. She isn't having to have talks with her kids on what to do if an officer approaches you. So to me, it seemed inappropriate for her to say now she perceives police differently when it affects her, when most people who look different than her have constant anxiety surrounding police. And the end consequences won't just be a formality for an investigation and a minor slap on the wrist. The end consequence of an interaction with police, a policeman who is untrained, could possibly mean losing your life if you look a certain way. And it's a major issue and a constant fear for a lot of people. So it just sounded wrong coming from her, the way she put it. And I doubt she intended it that way. I know she didn't intend it that way, in fact. And I doubt she thought too deeply about it. But I just think it's rich for coming from her with the privilege she has and the way she looks to say now she feels differently about cops. And I understand because of the investigation that Janelle may have felt increased anxiety around law enforcement. But I just imagine if she looked differently and didn't have her privilege, the magnified fear on a daily basis when operating in the world. So the fact that her perception only changed when it affected her was very tone deaf, and it felt wrong and insensitive to me, at least, even though I'm sure that that's not at all what she was meaning, and she wasn't thinking too deeply when she said it. She was probably only thinking based on her situation. And I know she said it for drama to some extent, to make the threat feel real and anxiety provoking for ratings, when people have to live with much more fear than that on a daily basis all of their lives. And the cost happens to be much more than a slap on the wrist for show. It could mean a person's life. But then again, their faith also believes Black people shouldn't be in priesthood positions. So it's possible Janelle was very sheltered to everything that goes on in the world because she only saw a thin slice of her world, perhaps. Janelle says when she sees a police car on her street, in the back of her mind, there's always a little worry of, have we gone to the next step? Mary says it's really made the older kids aware because when they see a policeman on the street, they always call them. And Janelle says they call us to make sure the parents are okay. Mary explains the kids are really concerned about what's going on. Janelle says there had been a lot going on for them, and for her at least, she decided, you know what? I'm just going to forget all of that for the day, and I'm just going to have fun. Cody says all of the kids' pumpkins were really cute and creative. Janelle says the biggest thing was the kids being so proud of their pumpkins. Janelle says Brianna and Aurora especially, she remembers, being so proud of her pumpkin. And there is a scene of Aurora carving her pumpkin, and she shouts out, I carved a pumpkin by myself. Look at my pumpkin. And I wonder how many things she is allowed to do by herself that are age appropriate, because you have to do some things alone to build confidence in being a capable person. And she seems extra proud, as if she never participated in helping carve a pumpkin before or doing much on her own all by herself before that she is capable of that would be age appropriate. Cody thought all the pumpkins were really creative, and he was impressed absolutely. Janelle doesn't know if she really comprehended how many pumpkins that would be. There were a lot. Gwen counts 24 pumpkins all lined up, and she says there are only 21 people in her family. It's now Halloween night. Showtime, baby. And Christine is styling Cody's hair during crunch time when she should be helping her kids get in makeup and costume. She's instead styling baby Huey's hair. Cody explains he is curling his hair for Halloween because it's unique. He only curls his hair damn near every episode of the show in full curly girl mode, so apparently Cody curling his hair is unique now. The one time Cody straightened his hair, he looked like a C-grade horror movie version of Keith Urban, and it was really scary. So Cody explains that his 4 wives are going as the 4 elements, and he is going to be the sun. Christine asks, what? She's styling his hair, and she has no idea what he is going as. I found that to be interesting. Cody says he has no idea. It's just something to do. He complains any idea he comes up with gets shot down, so he is just doing his hair in curls. You mean kind of like he regularly does, like every day? Christine says she thought Cody had the idea of being man because man is powerless against the elements, and it made all his wives like, aww. Cody is in his petulant, end of rope, childish, pouty phase where his patience is limited and he's about to malfunction. He gets a look in his eyes like his chip is disconnected. Christine asks, isn't that what you're going to do? And Cody puts on his facetious, shit-eating grin, smiling ear to ear, the same sneery grin he does before he is about to malfunction and go in full mask-off mode. The look he gave during the Thanksgiving conversation and during the classic Suck It Up Buttercup scene during the To Be in the Trees or Not to Be Trees saga. And he responds, yes, I would love to do that. It's so wonderful. Me, the powerless man, and his wonderful family. Obviously, I have a lot of commentary to offer on that. Cody says, me, the powerless man, and his wonderful family. So this is early on in season 2, before they even move to Vegas, let alone Flagstaff, where now Cody openly says his wives are obstacles to his goals in life, and he is pretty checked out with all of the wives and kids who don't yes him to death and blindly obey. He wants to play the victim here, cloaked in cynicism, of course, and he thinks people will feel empathy, like his family is portrayed as wonderful and amazing, and he is just the powerless man who cowers to his wives, almost being supplicant to them when he is underappreciated and he doesn't get painted in the light he deserves or painted in the way he wishes he would be, the way he perceives himself. Cody is super bitter and resentful of his family and possibly of them outshining him and feeling he doesn't get the credit and the accolades he deserves, and he has no say or agency, as if his 4 women run him and he's a victim of it, as his wives get all of the credit and recognition and accolades, and everyone around him and his family is perceived better than him. He is the most criticized member of the group and the one who gets the brunt of all the criticism. Cody is criticized, in my opinion, because of his behavior. He wants to pout like a child, petulantly feeling slighted because everyone around you is perceived as great and wonderful, and you take criticism and the beating in the public eye, and you have no power. Your wives run the show. And I think it bothers Cody that his family outshines him and that he has to play humble and be happy for his family and for his wives and say they are wonderful. He's pissed he isn't the star, and he wants to be perceived as one. Cody wants to be perceived as the one who runs the show, the leader, the valiant leader. And the costume and the way Christine described it would denote Cody being in a submissive role to his wives and them getting all the glory and accolades as he has to feign humility and feels underappreciated. And that's probably his take on a deep level. And he probably resents his wives big time and how they are the heroes of this story. And he has to be happy they are recognized and liked better than him. And he gets most of the criticism, and people don't perceive Cody as the powerful, intelligent leader he wishes he was. And it probably makes him jealous of his wives and of his kids, and resentful as well. And maybe that's why he tries to control his wives. But it doesn't make him look like a powerful leader. It just makes him look like a dick. Also, didn't Cody say during the special with Natalie Morales that people think he's a macho guy who does this for ego or to have a variety of women? But really, his wives run the show and he could never tell them what to do? Here he says he's powerless, as if he wants to be the dictator. He wants power. But before he said it wasn't about that. It's not like that. He has expressed recently that his wives are obstacles to his goals in life. In season 2, he complained those costumes would depict him as powerless, as he has to be humble and pretend he is happy for his family to be seen as wonderful rather than him. In my opinion, it seems like this costume and the way Cody views it is symbolic of the way the public eye has perceived Cody and his wives and family. The wives are supported other than Robin, who is the favorite wife, and equally as toxic as Cody, in my opinion, and definitely as manipulative. The kids are seen as intelligent and mature and successful. Cody is seen as troubling, controlling, manipulative, neglectful, emotionally abusive, inflexible, domineering. And Cody laments increasingly, particularly this season, that he is no longer the leader, no longer respected. And by that, he means obeyed blindly. He's no longer in control. He's no longer the head of the family, the central patriarch. And to get more power or control, to gain that position back, if he ever even had it, he is manipulating by being unfair and neglectful with his presence, intimacy, emotion, communication, and level of investment. And he doesn't treat his wives as equals with an equal voice to his. He expects compromise from his wives, but he doesn't seem to compromise at all. When he tried withholding intimacy from Christine, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, among other things. Cody has 3 other wives he can be intimate with. And I know Mary is off the table. They have no one else to be intimate with in any way. No other partner to have sex with or feel love from, hold hands with, spoon, whatever. And Cody knows this, and he removes the option. And with no option for compromise, then he threw out crumbs of, we'll see what type of sister wife you are, if you can be better, meaning with Robin, if Christine can be a better sister wife with her. When she asked if it was negotiable and asserted she wouldn't want to live in a sexless marriage, Cody brought up, well, we'll see how you are. True leadership and power is when your wife wants to listen to you and trusts in you and your ability to manage and your level of compromise, how fair you will be, how understanding. If a wife allows a husband to guide and they give the husband that privilege, it has to come from a love and a respect and a trust and a faith in them of wanting them to and believing in their capabilities. And that type of relationship and bond can't be coerced or manipulated or forced. It has to come naturally from a pure place. It doesn't come through withholding things or giving conditional love to force your way or force a change in someone to your advantage. It comes organically if it comes at all, and it is a privilege. And why would Cody even want a leadership position given disingenuously out of force, coercion, fear, manipulation, or blind obedience? That's not really leadership. It's domineering over people almost by force. The leadership isn't given because the wives mean it and they want to because they trust you and they want to give you maybe slightly more say than 50-50. I want 50-50 regardless, but let's just say that they want to give you 60-40 and some leeway to guide. They trust you that much. They believe in you. They want to freely say, trust you to be intelligent enough to do what's best for them. They believe in you. They believe that you will do that you will separate out emotion, that you will make practical decisions, not based solely on ego. They believe in you that you will weigh every aspect of every situation and do what's right for a huge family over yourself. And Cody does everything by ego. He can't manage himself right now. So how could Cody possibly manage a family? Cody should have counted his blessings to have the wives he did, and he should have felt lucky rather than powerless. Cody doesn't have the capacity to hold power and do it well. If he resents that his family outshines him and he feels powerless. He said before he would never tell his wives what to do, but here he laments being powerless just 5 episodes later, and he grapples with not being the leader anywhere. But Robin's now, and he will resort to toxic tactics in order to try and gain control by manipulation and neglect, and he isn't wanting a genuine position of leadership or guidance or management of the family, given out of his wives wanting to and instilling that honor in Cody and instilling that grace in Cody, that faith in him just naturally because they see things in him that he is capable and they allow him that honor and that privilege. Cody knows that's already off the table. He's fucked up so bad. So now he tries by playing games and removing intimacy or checking out investment wise and even with his presence to try and adapt behaviors, but it's not working. And he lost one wife. I heard, and this is a rumor, and it's based on a cameo he did on Reddit where he said that he was in grief counseling. So there's a rumor that he may be in grief counseling regarding his relationship with Christine and in counseling also for his older kids who won't speak to him as a result of his unequal treatment of his kids, depending on which mom they come from or how obedient they are. Cody isn't the powerless victim, but I have a feeling this cynical comment might be how he spins the narrative next season, and this is just a guess. And it's his pattern. He will say he too is a victim of the lifestyle and a victim. He bit more off than he could chew, and the wives demand so much. It's just too much expectation with so many wives. He does his best. His wives make it so hard, and TLC paints him away, blah, blah, blah. My guess is we will see Cody spinning the narrative to seem like a victim big time. And that's just a guess. I may be wrong, but if this was best foot forward Cody early on in season 2 saying he's a victim, we will see. But I have a feeling the only way he can get out of the damage he's done now is to try and spin like he's a victim, like he's going to therapy. And he will use the therapy on camera as a storyline because he's not in it for authentic reasons. He's just in it to try and gain back better optics and a better reputation and try and say, oh, look, I'm going to therapy. But if he was sincere about it and his heart was in the right place and he genuinely cared about this, I don't feel like he would make it a storyline and do it on camera. I don't know if that's actually going to be a storyline, but that's a theory that's out there. And it's just a rumor, and that's just my opinions on that speculation. Anyways, Cody is not a victim. Meanwhile, Mary explains that the kids are moving pumpkins in order to block the flow of trick-or-treating traffic to her door with the pumpkins so people go to the other front door. They have 2 front doors, so people never know what door to go to. Janelle says she thinks it's confusing, and she would be confused if she went to a house and it had multiple front doors. Christine is doing elaborate face makeup on all the wives and kids. Janelle's makeup has the rocks and tree and mountains. Peyton reveals in confessional that he doesn't know what he was for Halloween. It didn't have a name. All he knew is he had a mask and he wore a sweatshirt and gloves and pants and shoes. Gwen says she is Dad's little twin. She is seriously Dad's twin. And they are both in a happy family, and the camera pans to this little mini blue chair with Truly sitting on it, but she literally looks like a doll, so I had to do a double take. She looked like a porcelain doll sitting on that chair. Aurora announces she is a vampire very enthusiastically. Dayton has a black top hat on and a fake machine gun. He's in the mafia. He's a mafia, he says. It's not a mafia. It would be a mobster. I think he means mobster or gangster, not a mafia. Brianna is an angel. Gwendolyn tells Brianna in confessional, Brianna, you was a good angel. That grammar is horrendous, but she might have been just doing it as a figure of speech. I really don't know. They show Christine doing different people's makeup and some older kids helping younger kids and Christine primping Cody's hair. And Janelle says, what you see is actually kind of how most of their holidays are when they check out from everything else that's going on and they fully engage with the family. Robin says it was fun to sit there and kind of get creative and get kind of in each other's personal space a little bit. They show Robin spraying sparkly hairspray into Christine's hair and doing flame eye makeup on Mary. Cody explains he didn't paint anybody's face. He just got painted and he felt like a rock star clown. At one point, not only is Christine working on Cody's look, but Mary also helps as if they are doing Halloween for a child and everyone is catering to Cody. The wives laugh at Cody, referring to his costume as a rock star clown, and Mary admits Cody looked a little bit like a clown. Peyton hands Dayton Truly, and she immediately starts crying and fussing the second she gets into Dayton's lap, and Dayton whispers, "She hates me." Very eerily and creepily, and it was very off-putting. Very off-putting. Honestly, it made, like, I don't know why, the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Nothing against Dayton, but babies, children, and animals are usually very good judges of character. So if they automatically fuss or don't warm or feel comfortable, sometimes there's a reason, and it can be that they can feel the person fears them or is uneasy or anxious with them too, and that creates the anxiety in them. Or it can be something more. In this case, I don't think it's anything nefarious, of course. I think Dayton is just uncomfortable and anxious holding Truly, and Truly senses it, most likely. It was just bizarre how creepily he whispered, "She hates me," as she began fussing. Like, and he did it in a very creepy way, like in a very ghoulish way. It was just bizarre. Janelle says, as the family has started to gel, they're picking up this energy, and it feels like there's a lot of energy about doing things together. Cody says he thinks what they did was simple and easy, and it was embarrassing for him to have that makeup on his face. Simple and easy for him, who had Robin, Christine, and Mary all working on him as they ran around handling all the kids' costumes and makeup, and he sat there getting done up and doted on more than even his kids. Cody admits his hair is always strange too, so he wonders what he was worried about. His hair just got worse than it normally was, he says. Janelle says Cody looks like something from Kiss. All they did was frizz his hair like a mad scientist, and they sprayed it orange and put yellow stars around his eyes, like almost Kiss style. They could have done that hair in 10 minutes by brushing out his curls dry and then adding a little blow dryer air. It didn't need that much effort at all. And all that doting more than the kids got. It was ridiculous because that could have been done in 10 minutes, and Christine is like painstakingly putting his hair in curlers. You didn't need to do that to get that look out of Cody's hair. Anyways, Robin jokes there's actually a fifth wife in their family. It's Cody's hair. Well, if Cody decides to have more babies and he wants a younger, new wife to play with, I doubt Robin will be smiling at that. Cody sticks out his tongue like Gene Simmons from Kiss, and I want to puke and curl up in the fetal position. He is so disgusting and repulsive. Obviously, everyone knows when a guy sticks out his tongue what it means, and no one at all ever in their life would want to think of a guy like Cody in that way. It was sickening to me, the way he kept sticking out his tongue. Like, honestly, I really, almost tossed my cookies. He is so disgusting and repulsive to me. I'm sure he thinks that women find him appealing when he does that, but it just sickened me to the max. Gwen thinks her mom was water. Savannah thinks Robin is water. The younger girls are on the confessional couch, and they're having trouble figuring out what their moms were for Halloween, and I am too, to be honest. Aurora insists her mom was water, and she aggressively points her finger in Gwen's face at Gwen, saying, "Your mom was air," as if it's a serious slight to misinterpret. I'm a grown adult, and I can't tell you what the fuck each wife was going for as Halloween. It's very ambiguous and unclear, and only they know. Aspen says Christine was water. Maddie says she wasn't. Aspen insists yes, Christine was water. Mariah says no. Aspen says her mom, Christine, was air. Maddie thinks Robin was air. Everyone is confused, of course. No one knows who is meant to be what. Logan takes a photo of Cody and his wives, and Cody asks each wife who they are. And Christine is air, Mary is fire, Janelle is earth, and Robin is water. And Cody declares he is the sun. Maddie explains that the sun can't function without the elements, and the elements can't function without the sun. Logan says very tensely they wouldn't be there without the sun, almost foreshadowing symbolically that Cody's wives wouldn't be in this family structure without Cody. Hunter says it's cheesy. Aspen says it's so corny. The kids trick or treat. They must have gone to the gated neighborhood with the king-size candy bars because Mary tells the kids to get in the car. I lived in a king-size candy neighborhood during elementary school, at least, so we could just walk to trick or treat, and we got all the best candy. The kids look like they are having the time of their lives. Cody says it's a no-stress environment for children, and it's just about getting the candy man and getting the costume, and it doesn't have to be perfect because nobody rejects you because your costume is stupid. They all give you candy. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Cody got deep. I wonder, was he bullied in school or picked on or rejected or made fun of? Did he yearn to be accepted or get the candy, so to speak? I wonder from a psychological perspective what Cody's childhood and school days were like. Was he rejected? That would explain his deep insecurity masked by a need to feed his overinflated ego, while he feels the need to project as an alpha male, and why he likes polygamy and being the leader and in control at the center of many wives, and why he demands respect and obedience and takes the slightest constructive criticism as a huge insult cutting to the bone, and as major disrespect from his kids and wives and family. Why he has such a need to control and a propensity towards manipulation to get his way. Why he wears a mask and can sense a person's needs and shift the way he charms like a chameleon, all of it being superficial, of course, and not the least bit authentic. I wonder if that's why he tries to dominate his family, but other men, even blatantly disrespectful, antagonistic men, Cody accepts and cowers to for acceptance, taking a more submissive role with other men and male friends. I've always found that to be very interesting. I have wondered many times how all of this ties into Cody's childhood, including his personality, his adopting the lifestyle, his expecting obedience and respect from his wives and kids, and being incredibly domineering within his family and uncompromising with them. Yet with friends like Ken, they can be blatantly disrespectful in an egregious way, openly insulting, and Cody doesn't feel disrespected or slighted. He ignores it and begs for acceptance at all costs, even disregarding and overlooking blatant disrespect and insults, fearing to address them with his male friends. It's fascinating, really. But again, I'm no shrink. I'm just a curious viewer. All the kids agree in confessional. It was very fun trick-or-treating. Aurora liked going with a lot more brothers and sisters. It was a lot more fun. They do a close-up pan of all the pumpkins lit up at night, and I have to say, they all look really creative and really well done, like exceptionally well done. The Browns do have amazing pumpkin carving skills. I'm impressed. Cody stayed back at the big house to receive trick-or-treaters, and a few of his sons come home and they're about to go back out for more candy, but Cody demands to see what they got to raid their stashes. He wants something chewy that's not chocolate, but his kids' loot comes up short. Everybody gets back to inventory their loot. Cody is raiding everyone's stash, demanding he wants pieces of goo. Cody thinks it's been a special experience having the kids come into the family and feel like they fit. Christine says because now they are a family, so she doesn't really want to talk about how well Robin's kids are meshing with everybody else because she's kind of like, and Mary finishes Christine's thought. She says, it's done. There's no question anymore. Robin says, it seems like destiny, like they should have all been together from day one. That iconic line. It seems like destiny, like we should have all been together from day one. Robin says she couldn't have picked a better family. After Cody raids his kids' stashes for goo, he tells them to say, Happy Halloween on 3. I'm sure it's just for the cameras. Who makes their kids shout phrases in unison in real life unless it's for a video? Cody announces it's bedtime, and Aurora says, What? No! The kids do not want to go to bed. Of course, they're on a sugar rush. That brings us to the end of the episode. Thanks so much for watching Sister Wives with Mary Jane K. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. I can't wait for my community tab. And I would love you guys to share your insights in the comment box as always. I love to hear your thoughts. I'll see you guys next week for book club covering chapter 3, Christine and Cody, and also for the next episode of my Sister Wives Rewatch, season 2, episode 5, entitled Wife 3 Hits Sin City. And this is a little bit before they ever reveal the family is moving to Vegas. And if I recall correctly, they go to the wax museum, and if I'm not mistaken, Cody does or says something often weird in this episode. Although I can't exactly recall it now, but we'll get there next episode. I distinctly remember something weird coming out of Cody's mouth at the wax museum, or him doing something weird, but I may be wrong. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.